Hey folks, this is Jake at Canadian Cutting Edge, and this is a good news update concerning the problems that we've been having here in Canada with the Canada Border Services Agency playing footsies with CITT, the Canadian International Trade Tribunal, in finding ways to stop Canadians from having the knives that legally they are entitled to own. If this is totally new to you, here's a nutshell. CBSA is the Canada Border Services Agency. That's the policing group that protects our borders. That's the customs agent that you see at the border when you come into Canada. And they ask you all kinds of questions, and then they let you in, or they let you in and charge you a whole bunch of money for things, or they let you in and they take some stuff away from you, and all kinds of different options. They also track every single package that comes into Canada, and they try to decide if it's legal to come into Canada, if it's contraband, if it's drugs, all kinds of stuff, and all the legality and taxes that have to do with all that kind of stuff. They do all of that kind of thing. They have been targeting folding knives for quite a while. And their interpretation of the law is very, very narrow. And they basically want to stop all Canadians from having any folding knife. And that's as simple as it really is. Because our laws are very clear about fixed blade knives. We can have pretty much any fixed blade knife we want other than push daggers and a few other things. But folding knives, the law has a tiny bit of fuzz in it. It seems very clear to any judge that's had a case where they've looked at it, but CBSA thinks that there's a whole bunch of fuzz, and so does CITT. For those people who are concerned about, wait a minute, there's people dying from knives. Number one, it's almost never a folding knife. It's usually a kitchen knife that people die from in Canada, or it's something else. A broken glass bottle is categorized as a knife by Statistics Canada for counting the death rate. Ice picks, anything that is sharp that has an edge to it or a point to it is called a knife by Statistics Canada. There's no specific delineation between if it was a folding knife or not. And all the anecdotal evidence, if you look through the news, whenever they actually identify the knife, it's always some big fixed blade or an ice pick or a broken bottle. Folding knives just are almost never used to kill people in Canada. But even if it was every single time a folding knife, we still don't have a knife problem in Canada. In 2015, the last year that I've got numbers for, there were 14 overdose deaths of opioids, illegal use opioids, for every one death by stabbing in Canada. That's of all kinds of weapons that people stab with. 14. And we also have heard in the news recently, in this last year, 2017, and now in 2018, the death rates by overdosing is more than doubling, more than tripling. It's on its way to quadrupling for 2018 compared to just last year. So that means the numbers are much more like 50 overdoses for every one stabbing in Canada. 50. Where should CBSA be putting their energy? Let's stop illegal drugs from entering Canada. Let's focus on something much more meaningful. It's totally non-logical, people. We've got a scapegoat here called the folding knife. And it's not a genuine, it's a straw man that they can knock down. It's not a real problem. We don't have a folding knife problem in Canada. Very recently, in January of 2018, they've decided that any knife that has a flipper tab or a thumb stud or has any type of way of opening where it requires just a slight bit of effort or a whole lot of effort or any effort, basically any knife that has a pivot on it, where it's a folding knife, they've found a reason to take them away. Even friction locks, they've taken away, not friction locks, friction joint knives, they've taken away from some people. As simple as the Sword peasant knife, I heard some guy had his taken away. So this is the Sword peasant knife made in New Zealand. And you've got a pivot point right there. And it just is held in place by friction, or when you get your hand on it. Some people call this a rust lock system. It's not really a lock. It's just your hand basically locks it in place so that it can't close on you. But this is just a friction folder. Very, very simple. And there was a Canadian that was getting one of these in, and it was taken away, confiscated. There's no sense in it at all. Initially, they were taking away knives that would lock if you could find a way to flick it really hard, and then the knife would come out and lock. Or they even would use the stupid trick of holding it by the blade and doing that. Oh, centrifugal knife, and they'd take it away from the guy. We all know that this is inertia and not centrifugal force. Because you can look up the laws of inertia, look up centrifugal force, and you will find that physics has been, in the most recent years, denying its existence. There isn't such a thing as centrifugal force that is a separate force. It's different forces doing things that look like what we've used to call centrifugal force, but that's starting to get nitpicky, but that is science. So in a nutshell, that's CBSA, along with CITT, fighting against Canadians. Now, here comes the good news. There is a lawyer in Ontario who has defended a number of people with knife cases, folding knives. She is a lawyer that knows about folding knives, and she cares about folding knives, and she is starting some legal action, and it's expensive to do legal action. She doesn't have a plaintiff who is, paying her to do all this. Her law firm is doing this on her own, and she's working towards that end. So she needs some finances to cover the expenses. She can't do everything for free, right? So there's a GoFundMe campaign for, I'm probably going to say her name, Susan von Achten. And she is, very well-versed in knife law, and she's working on this to try to get, the first thing that she wants to do is get the memorandum of January 8th suspended. And if it gets suspended, that means that until the courts or Parliament, fix the problem, then that memorandum will be considered non-existent, and it will go back to the Border Services Agency will go back to what they were doing before January 8th. So hopefully that happens fairly soon. So she needs funds to help do that. It's expensive. Legal action doesn't come cheap. There are even American knife vendors that are coming on board because American knife vendors sell to Canada, and right now they can't sell to Canada because, good knife vendors, don't want to have their knives sent halfway to the destination and then turned around and confiscated. The vendor doesn't like that to happen, so a lot of vendors are not shipping, at least folding knives. Some are not shipping any knives to Canada now. Hopefully they will, figure it out and still do fixed blades, but there's some vendors that won't send anything to Canada, but they recognize that they want to, and so they're throwing in a little bit of money towards this GoFundMe campaign. I'm asking any Canadian that watches this to throw in a minimum of $10. Throw in $10 to this GoFundMe campaign to help us out. She needs over $110,000. She will be publishing the expense reports of where this money is going, how it's being spent. Sounds like she's just going to do a very upfront, really good job of this. And, if you're an American, consider, some solidarity with us Canadians and help us out. The Canadian knife constituency is not a huge group of people. And so it can get a little bit challenging for us. So if you guys would like to throw in $5, $10, whatever it is to help us out, every little bit is appreciated. One of the things that she's suggesting that we Canadians all do is that e-petition that I've been talking about. I talked about it just very little bit. There's a petition to our federal government. It's E-1552. It's a petition to the House of Commons. So this is a legal petition petitioning our Parliament, our elected officials. So it's not just an online petition on the internet somewhere that will hopefully grab somebody's attention. No, this is a pointed petition directly to the government. If you have a residence in Canada, you can sign this petition. So sign it. Get your family to sign it. Get your friends to sign it. Get your acquaintances to sign it. And one thing that I really want all of you Canadians watching this to do, or even Americans, if you subscribe to any Canadian YouTuber, even if it's not knife related at all, contact that Canadian YouTuber, let them know about this problem, ask them to participate, ask them just to do a shout out about it. Better yet, to do a whole dedicated segment on it. But just to become aware and get involved, because we need non-knife people to get involved in this as well. Today they're taking away knives. What are they going to take away tomorrow? If they've got the gall to take away legal possessions, legal goods that Canadians are allowed to own, then, what's to stop them from taking anything else? Nothing. There are some that are going to make the argument, well, why not just support Canadian knife retailers? You shouldn't be buying from overseas anyways. They have this same problem that consumers have. They can't get knives in. The same knives that consumers can't get in, they can't get in to sell. Businesses are going to go out of business. They're going to, go bankrupt. Knife vendors in Canada are going to be gone. And, Canadians will not only not be able to buy from overseas, there'll be very few places to buy knives within Canada either, because nobody will have knives to sell. So there you go. That's what's going on. We're fighting CITT. More specifically, we're fighting CBSA, Canada Border Services Agency. We've got a good plan that's being worked out. We've got a lawyer who knows what she's doing. I've been wanting this for over 2 years, to find a lawyer who knows what she's doing, or he's doing, with knife law, to take up the cause and defend Canadians. So this is a really good day. It's a really big day, but we still need all of your help. So go ahead and help out. Below, I have links to the GoFundMe campaign. Below, I'll have links to the e-petition to the House of Commons. Fill out those and participate. Get on board. Do your civic duty and get involved. And remember to always cut towards your chum and not your thumb.